Hello, and welcome back to LendAPI. My name is Kay, and this is episode 6 in our Rules and Decision series. In this series, we're going to be going over in detail our decision engine as well as our pricing engine, and showing you how to build your very own product utilizing the LendAPI platform. In this series, we're actually going to be creating our very own mortgage loan product. We left off last episode tying together the last little bit of our pricing engine and our offer tables, as well as our rule studios, back to our product studio. So we've now created and tied back all of our decision trees, which will now trigger our rule studio, back to our product studio. So in this episode, we're going to start out by testing our product and making sure it runs correctly. So let's get started. As always, to test your LendAPI interface product, all you have to do is click on the Start Application under the URL tab. So let's get started by putting in our first last name, followed by our main borrower's FICO credit score, and then our Social Security number. Of course, this is not a real test, but it should give us a good indication. Let's select married and then type in a date of birth. And you'll see our first logic tree that we tested back in episode 1 to filter out co-borrower logic should lead us to the co-borrower page. And let's fill out a co-borrower information, and let's put in that credit score as well as a test SSN, and okay, and then let's put in our annual income. You'll note from our last episode that the annual income for both the co-borrower as well as our main borrower, so we're going back to our main borrower, employment information, is going to be part of the final calculation for our loan to value, LTV, as well as utilized in some of our borrower income in the pricing engine. So I'm going to put in a employer name and then finally a annual income. So both of these are going to be added together to give the full borrower annual income, which will then trigger an action from our pricing engine. So we want to make sure that the right action is triggered. And then of course we're going over to our debt, our monthly debt. And as well as our asset and of course a down payment. So the down payments, the monthly debt, and the loan purchase are all currently being utilized also in our decision tree to, one, calculate debt to income ratio, but also decide what kind of decisioning and matrix we need for a purpose. So you'll remember in our decision tree, we've made a branch specifically for purchase and a branch specifically for refinance. So this is where that information is going to be tied back together. And then finally, let's put in our address. And then of course property type, which is also going to be important. Tying all these back to our decision tree. And then our sale price is also going to be utilized in both our decision tree as well as our pricing engine to retrieve the right action types. So I believe this is our last page, which means the next page is where we receive our term sheet. So if you remember correctly, in our actual product studio, this is where we went in and actually created the term sheet utilizing our rich text editor. And we leveraged our perfect, the first and last name of our borrower, which is utilized here. And then below we also have the loan amount, which is calculated by utilizing the purchase price minus down payment. And of course the interest rate, which is calculated utilizing our derived variable, and fetching the additives from our pricing engine. So this interest rate is actually an addition of all of the different pricing engine actions that result to this. And then of course our monthly payment is leveraged again utilizing our derived variable. We utilize the mortgage monthly payment calculation here to give us a monthly payment based on our amounts. So far all of this looks pretty good, and currently this is where actually our application ends. So for the rest of this video, let's go ahead and complete the rest of our mortgage application. After our term sheet, we are going to add one more tab to check bank information. So let's go ahead and save this as a last step and continue. Save form. So for bank check information, we're actually going to be leveraging one of our integration partners, specifically Plaid Auth. So Plaid Auth retrieves bank accounts and ACH payments and amounts utilized for their open banking systems. So this is very widely utilized in the lending space to do income verification as well as banking verification. So with a LendAPI, we do have Plaid Auth out of the box, and that means all you have to do is to turn on your authentication of your choice by simply clicking add, and then all you need to do is then add in your client information, credentials, and of course API information. And LendAPI will take care of the rest. So we went ahead and added Plaid Auth. That means that this is now activated and available for us to use to build out our product. So let's go back to Product Studio. There's going to be two types of products. One type of product, such as Experian, which is going to be data-driven, and this is mostly done on the back end. That means that if you want to leverage Experian or other credit bureaus to check for things like credit or OFAC checks, all you have to do is turn on that integration in our integrations page, and those variables will automatically pop up. But Plaid is actually a widget. That means that this particular integration actually requires users to be able to enter their banking information to move forward. So for us, we're going to add in the widget into our application, and to do so, again, you just have to navigate to widget, pull in the Plaid Auth widget, and it will automatically be added. Now, this will pop up for users when they navigate to this page. as a final check. And then I think for our final tab, we're actually going to do the agreement. And this is simply to just create a check for users, or to create an actual contract for users. So I went ahead and uploaded a contract into our agreement feature here. And again, to add an offer or any type of contract agreement, all you have to do is click the add offer, and LendAPI gives you the edit functionality within our agreement function. And we do have compliance checks within all of our offers and agreements, which means that you can actually utilize this agreement similar to you would with DocuSign. So it's a full contract management system that's built in. So for us, we're going to trigger this outcome based on PL approval, and we've added in our variables that will populate dynamically as a result of this contract. And so let's go ahead and update this contract, and this will be, of course, an offer type, which will be important in a second. So we're going to publish this. Oh, just make sure. Okay, let's update offer, and let's publish. All right, now that this version is published, let's just make sure we do a quick check. Yep, this is the correct version. And let's navigate back to our product studio and add in this, let's add in this last offer into our agreement page. And again, to do so, all you have to do is navigate to the widget section and then add in your offer agreement. So this is why we set the agreement type to be offer, because we also do have pre-qualification offer here as well. So if you set it as pre-qualification offer, this is where the offer agreement will live. So you'll see that this isn't exactly our offer. This is just a sample widget to showcase the preview of what an offer would look like in Product Studio. But do not worry, because our offer is available. So let's go ahead and save this form. Now, before we publish this, I would like to add in one more rule in our Rule Studio, or in our decision engine. And the rule is to just make sure we do a verification. So between term sheet to bank check, we want to do one more verification. We've done all of the pre-qualification up until this point to make sure that the user qualifies based on the information they've entered. Now let's just do one more authentication. You just button this up. And the last rule actually is going to be set in our term sheet. So what we're going to do is, as part of this term sheet, we're going to add in another variable to basically say whether or not the user agrees. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a variable studio, add another form input variable agree to terms, and we'll put this as PL. And then we're going to put this as a list, and I will say I agree, or I disagree. And we're going to add this variable back into our application now. And more importantly, we're going to add this variable back into our new rule in Rule Studio. So we're going to go ahead and add in the I agree, or what's it called? Agree to terms. We're going to add this underneath the our terms and conditions. And then that way the user can select whether or not they agree. So let's go ahead and save this. Now, going back to our Rule Studio, we're actually going to set one more rule. And this is just an authentication check of whether or not the terms have been agreed upon. So we're going to do an agreement check rule here, and we're going to do the agreed terms, agree to terms, and then if it equals to I agree, we're going to move forward. Approve, and this will be an action. And the reason I'm setting this is it's just one more check to make sure all of the logic is in place. And this will be an action, approve action. And actually what we're going to do is we're actually going to create another outcome for this real quickly, and this will be a approve, or I will say agreement, and ready to sign offer. Now going back to our Rule Studio, we're going to set this as approved, agree, agreement, and let's save our action. And then of course if you are declined or do not meet this rule, then unfortunately you will probably not move forward. And let's choose decline, and then the decline will keep as the same because this doesn't have much trigger to our action. Let's submit this tree. Before we do, let's save it and test it real quickly. Is I agree is approved. I disagree. Decline. Perfect. Let's submit for approval. And let's view our tree. Let's approve, and now let's tie this back to our product studio as we've just published our rule. So I'm going to actually put this particular rule into the bank page because I don't want anything to be triggered until after they've reached this page and authenticated. So I'm going to go ahead and do the auth check here, and then I'm going to go ahead and set up my next step as agreement, and then of course the last step is agreement as well. And then let's go ahead and check. And once they select agreement, they will be taken to the final offer page to sign the offer. All right, so we're going to go ahead and publish this and come back next video where we will finalize and test our full mortgage flow and start to run it through with some test customers. And as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe and follow us for more content.